June 10, 1944, just outside Villers-Bocage, Normandy. The fog hangs low over the hedgerows, still heavy with the smell of cordite and churned earth from the fighting the night before. German Oberfeldwebel Karl Neumann crouches beside the burned-out hulk of a Panzer IV, his fingers brushing over the still warm steel as he listens for the distant rumble of engines. His squad is exhausted, only half strength now, but their eyes are fixed on the distant road that snakes back toward the American beachheads. The night before, they had watched an entire American armored column get chewed apart. The ambush had been brutal and precise, Panthers firing from concealed positions, anti-tank guns barking from the shadows, and the hedgerows acting like natural traps. Flames lit the night sky as one Sherman after another died in spectacular bursts of sparks and fire. Neumann remembered the satisfaction. Finally, he thought, the Americans will feel how thin their armor really is. But this morning, something feels wrong. He hears it first, a low mechanical hum, faint but unmistakable. Engines, many of them. Yet these aren't retreating engines or frantic repair crews. It sounds like an armored column on the move. Neumann signals his men down, presses his ear to the ground. The vibrations are steady, pulsing, rhythmic. Trucks, tanks, workshops on wheels, and all of it heading toward the front, not away from it. He squints through the haze. The road, empty a moment ago, begins to flicker with silhouettes. Sherman tanks, dozens of them, fresh paint, clean hulls, antennae whipping, machine guns glinting with oil. Behind them, half-tracks roll forward loaded with spare track links, engine blocks, crates of ammunition, and men who look like they slept in beds, not ditches. Neumann's breath catches. "This is impossible," he mutters. Just hours ago, he watched a company of Shermans get annihilated. There's no way replacements could arrive this fast, not in Normandy, not with the beaches still contested and the supply lines barely secured. But they keep coming, tank after tank after tank, a seemingly endless line of green steel rumbling confidently toward the fight. His lieutenant, Lieutenant Weber, steps up beside him, binoculars raised. Weber is a veteran, hardened, unimpressed by most things, but even he falters. "Das gibt es nicht," Weber whispers. "This cannot exist." Yet it does. The Americans haven't just replaced their losses, they've overcorrected. What was destroyed yesterday has been regenerated, multiplied, strengthened overnight. Neumann grips his rifle tighter. Suddenly, the German belief that the Allies would collapse under armored losses feels like a fantasy. Because the Americans aren't slowing down, they're accelerating. And for the first time since the landings, Neumann feels something cold crawling up his spine. Not fear of the Shermans themselves, but fear of the machine behind them. A machine Germany cannot see, cannot strike, cannot slow. And it is waking up.
June 10, 1944, Mulberry Harbor A, off Omaha Beach. Just hours earlier, before those fresh Shermans appeared inland, Captain Ross Delaney of the U.S. Army Transportation Corps stood on the deck of an LST, boots slick with seawater and grease, as he waved a signalman forward. The morning sun cut through the lingering smoke over the artificial harbor, a miracle of engineering, still only 4 days old, yet already moving thousands of tons of supplies ashore. "Get her in tight!" Delaney shouts over the crash of waves. The LST groans as it presses against the towering floating pier of steel pontoons. Behind Delaney, a row of Sherman tanks, engines idling hot, turrets locked forward, wait like impatient beasts. The roar of cranes, the clatter of forklifts, and the shouted orders from Navy beachmasters mix into a chaotic symphony. Delaney wipes sweat from his brow. Every minute matters. Because last night, reports came in, a U.S. tank company mauled near Villers-Bocage. Losses heavy, situation unstable. Delaney knows what the infantry doesn't. The tanks now landing aren't reinforcements, they're replacements, summoned almost instantly from ships still stacked to the rails with armor, ammo, and fuel. The first Sherman rumbles down the ramp, treads hitting sand, then gripping the steel matting that turns the beach into a highway. As soon as it clears, another follows, then another. A dozen tanks roll out in under half an hour, then roar past the beach toward a cluster of waiting trucks. A Red Ball-style convoy, still in its embryonic form this early after D-Day, is already forming up. Drivers lean out windows, shouting coordinates. Mechanics swarm the tanks, checking for transit damage, loading extra machine gun belts, tightening bolts loosened by the crossing. Delaney listens as a quartermaster officer rattles off numbers. 34 tanks ashore since dawn, 40 more by mid-afternoon. Another officer adds, 5th Armored wants a full company by tonight, they'll get 2. Delaney allows himself a thin smile. The Germans thought they destroyed those tanks last night, but the Americans are about to show them how a modern industrial nation fights a war. Meanwhile, back near Villers-Bocage, Neumann's lieutenant lowers his binoculars, jaw tight. They replaced an entire company, he says, in a single night. Neumann stares at the endless column still unfolding on the road, more tanks than his regiment has seen in weeks. But what happens next will shake him even deeper, because those tanks are only the front edge of the storm that's coming. June 10th, 1944, south of Bahia. The sky darkens as storm clouds gather, brushing the fields with rolling shadows. A convoy of American GMC 6x6 trucks growls down a dirt road carved fresh through the hedgerows. At the head of the column rides Sergeant Walter Briggs, a wiry logistics NCO with grease-stained sleeves and a clipboard strapped to his thigh. His truck jolts over a rut, but Briggs barely notices. He's too focused on the numbers. Fuel column at H10, ammo column H20, spare parts arriving behind us. He mutters each detail like a priest reciting scripture. Behind him, a mobile maintenance unit, men in coveralls, tool chests, welding torches, replacement guns, spare road wheels rattles forward. These aren't frontline troops. These are the mechanics and supply men who make the front line possible. They move fast, talk fast, and think even faster. A corporal leans out the window. "Sergeant, they say the tanks we're replacing were knocked out at 2300 hours. Briggs grins. "And we'll have new ones on the line by 1300. That's 14 hours. Let's make it 12. A burst of laughter follows. Not arrogant, just confident. This is what they're built for. This is what America trained and planned to do before the first boot ever hit French soil. Far ahead, near Villers-Bocage, Neumann hears the convoy before he sees it. Engines, clattering metal, the unmistakable movement of heavy equipment being positioned for battle. But it's the speed that terrifies him. A destroyed Sherman sits in a ditch from last night's ambush, still smoldering. Neumann watched it burn until sunrise, but now, as he lies hidden in a hedgerow, he sees something he cannot comprehend. A replacement Sherman pulls beside the wreck from last night. The crew hops out, checks a map, then drives directly into the position the burned-out tank held hours before. To its left, another Sherman takes a spot where Neumann knows a different tank had been blown apart. Each burned tank seems to be replaced by something fresh, polished, alive. To Neumann, it feels like watching dead men rise. His lieutenant whispers, "They do not run out. They do not slow down." A silence settles between them, a silence heavier than artillery. Neumann had believed German training, German discipline, and German armor would win the campaign. But this unstoppable flow of new machines, new men, new supplies is something no doctrine prepared him for. He thinks of the German resupply schedule: days to move a handful of tanks, weeks to get spare parts, months to repair combat losses. Then he looks at the Americans, and he finally understands. Germany isn't fighting an army. Germany is fighting a continent set in motion, a nation whose factories never sleep, whose ships never stop, and whose soldiers never wait for anything. A rumble builds behind him. More engines, more Shermans, more trucks. The realization crushes him. If the Americans can replace an armored company overnight, what hope does Germany have once they bring their full strength to bear? The wind carries the sound of U.S. tank treads grinding forward, shaking the earth beneath him. The machine is not just awake now. It is coming for them.